What's up, Mortgage Coach community? Dave Savage. It is 2019. This is my second interview, although I did have our Friday call last week with Jonathon McKinnies in South Bend, Indiana. What's up, Jonathon?
Hey, Dave. How you doing?
I'm doing good, brother. I'm looking forward to, I think this is like the third interview that we've done.
I think so. Number 3.
Yeah. So, by the way, if you like what Jonathon and I talk about and you like Jonathon, I'm going to put a link down below to at least one of our other interviews so you can get more from Jonathon. He's an amazing mortgage professional out of South Bend, Indiana. I met you in person. It was like 2 years ago, wasn't it, that I was there for a lacrosse event?
That's right. Yep. You came into the office. We got a little selfie together, I think. Talked about win by noon, and you got to kind of experience a little bit of Notre Dame as well, I think. So that was cool.
Yeah, my son was in a lacrosse tournament at Notre Dame, and that was just an incredible experience. I love your town, by the way. I had a really good time. So let's talk about your mortgage practice. Let's talk about what you're doing different in 2019, and then let's get a little mortgage coach in there on how you're using mortgage coach to help families. So let everybody know how many families did you serve last year? A little bit about your production.
Yep. 2018, we served 224 families. Our average loan amount is about $159,000, so fairly modest average loan amount. So we had about a little over 35 million in production, and so we did hit our goals. We would like to serve more families in 2019, so the goal is to hit at least 250 if we can, but we'll see how that goes. But right now we're doing well. We've increased our average loan amount from about 140 to 159. And I think that's partly due to the market itself. Our goal for 2019 is not just to serve more families, but to become more ingrained in the community, be that community resource, that community advisor, be more influential within the community we serve. I believe we're in a critical time in 2019 and for the years to come. And that is where we are competing more with once again, that term of being a commodity. And I think that we have to decommoditize ourselves. We've got to make sure that we are being more influential. People want to work with us because they know us as a part of the community and because they know us by our advice as well. So that's a big deal for me.
Yeah, well, you're doing a great job online creating videos that are educational and entertaining. So, I track a lot of the nation's best loan officers, and the way you're building personal brand in your market, I mean, it's special. So if you're a mortgage pro on this and you want to build your personal brand to better serve your local community, Jonathon is someone that you want to tune into because he's really doing it all right. I think the pillars of success for the loan officer that's going to be successful in 2020 and beyond are advice. Like, their advice has true tangible value. They build personal brands so that they really stand out in their local markets, and then they prospect. They get after it. And Jonathon does all three of those things really well. So Jonathon, let's also talk about the 5-star reviews you get, because you guys use social surveys, so you're part of the social survey network. How did you rate, from a 5-star review standpoint?
Well, I know in 2018, I didn't count how many reviews we had, but most of our reviews are 5-star, 4.8 stars. In 2017, thankfully, our team was in the top 10 in the country, and we did a fantastic job of getting a very high percentage of our survey requests actually completed, and it's really more of a set it and forget it thing. So that's been a huge thing for me. I actually have that on my, one of the big things about being influential is having an online presence with your customer reviews. I don't believe that they're fabricated. They're not like, we're not, filtering them and trying to figure out which ones we're going to post, but they're all on social survey, whether they're good or bad. And so a customer can go onto my profile. You can see over 300 online reviews, and they're ongoing. And so for me, that's been a huge part of my business. I use that, and I also use Zillow reviews as well. But both of those are very important to me, and it's definitely led to a lot of my success for sure.
Hold up that little medal you got from the social survey. I want you guys to think about that. I think there's over 28,000 loan officers in the social survey network.
Yeah, this is just a little card there. Yeah, so we had, this was 2017. This said 131 total reviews in 2017, 4.93% were a 4.93 star rating. And so, yeah, I mean, it's awesome. And obviously I couldn't do it. couldn't do it without my team, but it is something that people look at as a reason why they want to work with a loan officer. It's not all price. It's going to be, you know, how's that service? And that to me just lends credibility to your service, you know.
Yeah, well, there was a chat in the Mortgage Coach Facebook group, and it was someone asked, what are your top KPIs? And by the way, everybody, that should be one of your key performance indicators. You know, how many reviews did you get and what's the average rating? You got to measure that. You also got to measure your past customer recapture rate. So like out of the total number of past customers you have, how many are you recapturing every month, every year? Key metrics that y'all need to measure in 2019. So Jonathan, let's talk about what are you going to do different this year in 2019 versus last year to get to that 250 goal and to still maintain all these 5-star reviews?
Well, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel, but one thing that I did with my team and my branch of loan officers is really just, you know, what is your one word for the year? And for me, it sounds very simple. I wanted to boil it down to something that's tangible, and that is rise for me. So I want to make sure that I'm recommitting myself to winning my mornings, and so rising a little bit earlier. You know, I've read the book, if you've not read it, The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. I think that's a really good tactic. It's called Lifesavers. So there's a routine that you go through in the morning, and I believe that leaders and influential people, most of the high producers win their mornings. They don't just roll out of bed and then get to work, but you've got an intentional approach to your day. So that to me has been a huge thing. So I feel like if I do that, then it's easier for me to be more committed to my routine, my time blocking, and protecting my time throughout the remainder of the day. And so that's number one. Number two is, once again, like I said, being more committed to building that community influence. And so I'm connecting with my top 10 agents more so than just my broad approach that I've had in times past, which I would just kind of call on 40 or 50 agents. But now I'm just kind of singling out my top 10 a little bit more, along with non-agent referral sources. And so I'm going to really try to connect with more community resources, community business leaders, and just connect on an influential and direct basis, face-to-face, and just going back to that kind of old school approach a little bit, you know, and I feel like that's important.
Yeah, so guys, couple things. One, I'm going to put a link to one of my interviews with Hal Elrod down below. No doubt, getting up early and getting after it in a way that's winning is huge. So listen to my interview with Hal down below. Incredible interview, great message. I love the fact that you're getting more focused on, you know, your top 20, top 25% of your current realtor partners. Did you hear that, everybody? He's got 40 that he's focused on in the past, and he's not going to ignore them, but he's going to go deeper with the top 10. And then I love the fact that you're expanding into, you know, local business owners. When you and I were doing our prep call, you're going to focus on more CPAs, financial planners. You know, you're going to broaden it. And by the way, the reason I love that is because, guys, we need to get to the buyer before the realtor. You know, and the best ways to do that, first and foremost, your past customer database, because not only are there refis in there, there's purchases. Every time you can get to a purchase before a realtor, that's not like winning. That's like grand slam. You know, you got a loan and you got something of value to bring to your partners.
And real quick on that, same, if you don't mind, one of the reasons I do get some business from my real estate agents, when I ask them, I said, what can I do to add value to your business? And, you know, many real estate agents will kind of tongue in cheek say, well, just send me more leads, you know, send me more business. And if you're like me, you don't get just the call-ins, you know, we're not a call center. We get our business from our sphere of influence, from the people we're connected with. And so one of the things that I've done with my real estate agent partners is tell them that my goal is to proactively protect your future in the business. And how I do that is by, I have a very, very specific database. When I'm calling on my past clients, or if they call me or they refer someone to me, one of the scripts that I use is that I will make sure that I'm going back into my database, seeing who the original referring source was. So if it was you, Mr. Realtor, I'm going to make sure I'm connecting that client back to you. We all know that most real estate agents, or just people in the business in general, aren't that great at database cultivation. And we are pretty good about that. And so when we get past clients calling us back, we're making sure we try to connect them back to the other person. And that just adds value to that relationship. And so I think that's very important that you mentioned that.
It's super important. And I want to go through about a 1 to 2 minute rant and show my screen. I'm going to show that. And then I'm going to hand it off to you. and I want to walk through a couple TCAs, total cost analysis on your side. So guys, the average loan officer out there in today's market, this is the value prop. I can close loans faster and easier than anyone else. I've got great rates, and they deliver this. And Jonathon is telling a broader value prop. My advice will help you build wealth faster and make smarter decisions and deliver this. And then, the other thing that I love about Jonathon is that the way he's integrated mortgage coach, it's giving him a value prop with his realtor. And this is one that I hear a lot of top loan officers use. It's like, hey, and I know you did some stuff with the seller buy down this year, where you're like saying, hey, because of my advice, I'm creating conversion, I'm creating urgency, I'm creating transactions. But what I just heard is a version of this, where it's like every loan you give to me, not only am I gonna, create conversion, create urgency, help them build wealth with real estate faster, but I'm gonna manage that mortgage over time. And I'm going to ensure they always get the best mortgage. So guys, when you do that, you're going from playing checkers to playing chess, which I just can't emphasize enough. If you want to kill it in 2019, and by the way, if you want to have a sustainable mortgage practice in 2020 and beyond, this is not a good idea. This is a requirement. So Jonathon, why don't you, what I'm trying to do this year is do these mortgage strategies so that we're teaching loan officers how to go from that checkers to chess. I know you've got a total cost analysis that's got a story, a customer story on the front end. Why don't you pull up your screen and walk us through it?
All right. So the first thing that I want to share with you is the survey. Can you see it?
Yeah, I see it. Ooh, I like that.
Social survey right here.
Yeah.
So this is a customer we just closed in December, but I just thought this would be kind of powerful to show. It just says Jonathon went over and compared all the different loan options and presented them in a format that is very easy to understand for people like me who have no experience with mortgages. His team also provided clear communications throughout the process, made sure everything was done in a timely manner. Thank you, your team, for making the process a great one. But it started out with mortgage coach. He had no experience with mortgages. A lot of people think that they have to almost be an engineer in their mentality in order for them to understand mortgage coach, but he was a first-time home buyer. And it allowed me to share with him very simply, FHA compared to a 3% down conventional compared to a 5% down conventional. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my another screen with you. That is the total cost analysis for that particular buyer.
So while he's pulling that up, so guys, did you connect the dots on that? That was a 5-star review where the client actually called out the fact that, I appreciated the way you delivered options. And I get that all the time. I mean, there's not a week that goes by where I don't have someone in our community that either private messages me or post it in our Facebook group where they're getting 5-star reviews. And Mortgage Coach, the fact that they're delivering advice, not price, not just price, is helping to get more 5-star reviews. So love that you showed that to us, brother, and we see your screen.
Yeah, and so I really did keep it as simple as I could initially for this client. I just went over a 5% down conventional. He had the money. I went over a 3% down conventional, then a 3.5% down FHA. And all I'm trying to illustrate here is that you don't have to necessarily over-engineer Mortgage Coach. I could have easily, because I sort of had an idea of where we were going to go with it anyway to begin with. But I just shared with the client the main thing, what's your cash to close? Because I always ask them, what's most important to you, your overall savings, your cash needed for closing, or your monthly payment. And as you go through those, you can easily highlight what's, highlight what's most important to them. And so I just simply went through these 3 different options with them. I will go into the more info button at times, and then I'll also go over to the right-hand side where it shows the interest in MI paid over 15 years compared to the 60-month savings between all 3 options. And so I really just sort of led him down the path and let him make the decision. Nothing too crazy with this one. I didn't go into, which I sometimes do, I'll go into, what if you added an extra principal reduction payment toward the 3% down option or the 5% down option compared to the other one. But I didn't really get into all that. I just simply went through the simple transactional options that he had, the top three, and let him make the decision. It really made a difference. And I will say this, Dave, that my goal is to meet face-to-face with a lot of my clients. And so I did meet face-to-face with him and his wife, and went over the total cost analysis in my office. One of the things that I used to do was go over an estimated cash to close worksheet, or like a good faith estimate back in the day when they would come in the office, but it would be, 3 different sheets of paper. And one thing that I didn't want to forsake was meeting with people in office and having face-to-face meetings. And sometimes people think that using Mortgage Coach will sort of get rid of that in-office experience. But for me, it doesn't. I just flip my screen around. I go over everything on my monitor, and then I'll print off the total cost analysis, give it to them, put it in their buyer packet when they leave, and then I'll send them an email with the total cost analysis link and then my video attached to that total cost analysis as well.
So I want to dissect a few things. Scroll down a little bit just so we can see the top part where your branding is at the top. Yeah, there we go. So I want you guys to see this. Remember, one of the things we said that was critical is personal branding, advice and personal branding. So we are super intentional about making this a personally branded advice experience. It's got the company brand in the upper right-hand corner. It's got your picture in the upper left-hand corner. Click on that little menu up top. The family could translate this and read it in Spanish if they wanted to. They can print it. They can share it. You can change views. So this is a dynamic, personally branded advice experience. And I just make the case, if you're a referral-based local mortgage professional and you want to kill it in 2019, this is the new must-have. It was a competitive advantage. That's why 34% of America's best loan officers already use Mortgage Coach, because it's a competitive advantage. But in 2019 and beyond, this is really just a must-have. Now, scroll back up. I want everybody to see this, because the other thing I love about what Jonathon did is he could have met with his family and not delivered a total cost analysis. This is a family that's looking, do I do an FHA? Do I do conventional? Do I, figure out how to put an extra $6,000 down? This is a conversation that loan officers have all day, every day, all over America, and they don't give families the transparency and value of a total cost analysis. And my message to y'all would be, families appreciate this, even if they barely qualify for a loan. And by the way, they will give you more 5-star referrals. They'll trust you more, and they'll give you more referrals if you give this to them. So, John, anything you would add to that, or anything on this report before we get into some other stuff?
No, I just think for me, the big takeaway is that the buyer doesn't have to be overly experienced. A lot of people think that this is sometimes too complicated, but it's only as complicated as you think it is. And as long as you kind of cater it toward the client, you can keep it very simple, like I did really in this situation, or you can really go a little bit further with it and talk about rate buy down, and you can talk about the different terms and the different savings based on term, 20-year compared to 25, or a 15 compared to a 30, and what would happen if you threw an extra $500 at your principal balance. You can go into all of that. It's just really, it depends on what you want to do with that client.
This is awesome. You go ahead and stop sharing your screen now. So first of all, if you're watching this interview and you got value, you got to take away an idea from what Jonathon shared. Give us a like. You're watching this either on Facebook or our YouTube channel. Like it and share it. Share it with a mortgage friend. If you're a manager, have a meeting around this. Jonathon talked about in-person meetings. He talked about how he's expanding his referral partners. He talked about how, in 2019, he's identified his top 10 realtor partners. And, even if you're doing a fraction of the business Jonathon's doing, I think as we come into the new year, everybody should be looking at who are my best partners and customers. How am I going to go deeper with them? How am I going to get more business from them? How am I going to help them more? And then how am I going to expand? And I love this interview for all those reasons. So as we wrap it up, Jonathon, last minute here, any words of advice, any last thoughts for the Mortgage Coach community?
One thing that I'm reading, and I shared with all of my team in my branch this year, is the Darren Hardy book, The Compound Effect. And so I guess if I leave you with any final words, it would be it's that mentality of the compound effect. Chop wood, carry water, do the things you know to do on a consistent day in, day out basis. You'll create the habits. Mortgage Coach is nothing different than that. It's just compounding. So just do it one day at a time, win the day, move on to the next day. I have one of my friends in our office. His name is Giuseppe. You know Giuseppe. He's Giuseppe. One of his quotes that he just read recently was just win the day, move on to the next day. And I think that's what you have to do. And sometimes we're afraid to implement something new because, we're not used to it. You just got to be willing to do it one day at a time, and then it becomes a habit. And that's what this is for us. So.
Well, I've got to just add on to a few things you just said. So Giuseppe, by the way, I think he was #1 in social survey for 5-star reviews, or he tied for #1. By the way, Giuseppe's done over 2,000 total cost analysis. I'm going to put a link down below because he's just a monster. Does over 100 million in volume. Of course, he's in a different market than you with higher loan amounts, but he is awesome. And then that Darren Hardy message. I've interviewed Darren a lot. Darren and I created a product for the mortgage industry called Insane Productivity for mortgage professionals. Yeah, I know you did that. And I'm going to put a link down below because it is a good time of year. If you've already signed up for that, hundreds of Mortgage Coach loan officers have already gone through that training. Do it again. It's like, go through it again. And if you've never been through Insane Productivity, there's a link down below so that you can sign up and get after it. Every Friday at 9 o'clock, I lead a mastermind, and this is going on the 3rd year. And I started that mastermind 3 years ago to support that Insane Productivity program. So while we don't just talk about Insane Productivity for an hour, it's called the Mortgage Coach Productivity Mastermind because it's all about how to make more money in less time as a mortgage pro. So tune in every Friday, 9 o'clock Pacific. Jonathon, I would love to have you on a Friday call if you don't mind. After this interview, we'll sync up on when to have you as a leader on the call. Again, guys, hopefully this was a great conversation for everybody. You got takeaways of value. Remember, like it, share it, and Jonathon, thank you, brother.
Hey, thanks. Appreciate it. Have a good one.